Down there, life continues. The traffic is awful, stocks go on trading, and Star Trek is still showing.
Good morning, grade 9 learners. Welcome to today's natural science lesson, proudly brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education. My name is Milton Gomo. Let's get ready as we start our lesson. Let's start off by looking at the structure of our lesson today. The knowledge area of our lesson is life and living. The topic of our lesson is human reproduction. Human reproduction. And the subtopic of our lesson is stages of reproduction. Stages of reproduction. So that's how our lesson is structured today. The knowledge area is life and living. The topic is human reproduction. And the subtopic of our lesson is stages of reproduction. Let's quickly go through the objectives of the day. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to state and explain the stages of reproduction, and these include ovulation, copulation, fertilization, implantation, pregnancy, and final childhood. So we're going to be looking at all of these stages of reproduction. You should also be able to outline the process of implantation to the creation of a fetus. You should also be able to describe the role of the placenta, and finally, being able to explain pregnancy and the gestation period. So those are the objectives of our lesson, and the source of our lesson is kept document, page 60. All right. We're going to start off by looking at the pre-knowledge, what we need to recall, what we need to recap, what we covered in our prior grades. We have to recall what we did in grade 7 under the topic of human reproduction, where we looked at those two types of human reproductive systems, that is the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. Under this topic, you have to recall that the male reproductive system is got the male organs, right, which all play different roles. And also the female reproductive system is got female organs, which also play different roles. So we have to recall, for instance, we have to recall the function of the testicle is the ones which produce sperm cells and release them. Okay? And also we have to recall the function of ovaries is the ones which produce and release egg cells. So we need to recall all that so that we can easily fit into today's lesson and also understand as we move through with our lesson. Also have to recall what we just covered recently in one of the topics under human reproduction, that was reproductive organs, grade 9, okay, where we looked at the different organs, right, and the function for each. For instance, shown there is the male reproductive system showing the male reproductive organs, right, or given there, right, each with its own function, right. Also, you have got the female reproductive organs that are shown in the female reproductive system, given the diagram there, right, where you also have to recall the function of the uterus, right, the cervix, ovary, vagina, and the vulva. Okay, so we need to recall this important information because it's going to help us to understand completely today's lesson and be able to understand any new words or terms and information that might come through this lesson. Right, with the pre-knowledge, that is what we've just been discussing. The topics covered in grade 7 and grade 9 under human reproduction. You can now answer the baseline assessment which is going to be our first activity. Right. Given in 4 questions, it says, state the organ whose function is given below. State the organ whose function is given below. Number 1, the one which receives penis during copulation and allows the baby to pass through during birth. Okay. Number 2, the one which is placed inside the vagina during copulation and passes over sperm cells. Then number 3, the one which produces and releases egg cells. And finally, number 4, the one which produces and releases sperm cells. So this baseline activity, we are going to be using the pre-knowledge to answer this baseline assessment. And I believe and hope that all of you are going to do well in this activity, right? Because all about what we just covered in our recent topics. Okay, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this activity. Thereafter, we do corrections. So let's get started. Right, welcome back as we look at the corrections to our baseline assessment. Let's check the questions one by one and find out the answers to each of those questions. Right, number one. Right, if you go back to the statement that is given as instruction for your activity says, state the organ whose function is given below. State the organ whose function is given below. Right, number one, the one which receives penis during copulation and allows the baby to pass through, right, during birth. Okay, this one is the vagina. Okay, that's the female reproductive organ which receives the penis during copulation and also allows the baby to come out, right, during bedtime. Okay, number two, state the organ which is placed inside the vagina during copulation and passes over sperm cells. This one is the penis. Okay, that's the penis. Number three, the one which produces at least egg cells, right? So you are going to be talking about the ovaries, right? Ovaries are the ones which produce and release egg cells. Okay, so the answer to number three is ovaries. Okay, number four, produce and release sperm cells. Okay, these are the testes. Okay, the testes are the ones which produce sperm cells and then release sperm cells. Okay, so this is our baseline assessment and the answers. So I hope all of you managed to add this activity in a correct way. For those not managed to do that, remember to write down the corrections, okay, as we proceed. And remember to also be sending your work, your comments and questions through our WhatsApp number 079-578-2908. So be communicating with us through our WhatsApp number as we move through our lesson. Let's look at the terminology of our lesson, okay? The keywords, key terms that we might be meeting throughout the lesson that you need to know their meaning, okay, and also how they are used, okay? Right, first one, ovulation. This one is the release of the right egg from the ovary, okay? That's the release of a right egg from the ovary. We're going to be looking at this process in detail as we move on. Right, next term, copulation, also known as sexual intercourse, the process where the erect penis is placed in the vagina. Okay, ejaculation is the release of sperm cells, right, from the penis to the vagina, and this happens during copulation. Okay, so that's ejaculation. The next one, we look at fertilization. What is fertilization? This one is the fusion of a sperm cell with an egg cell. So that's fertilization, the fusion of a sperm cell with an egg cell. Then we've got pregnancy, right? We'll talk about the gestation period, which lasts approximately for 40 weeks. Okay, so the human gestation period is 40 weeks. 40 weeks. Okay, that's our terminology. Now we look at reproduction. Okay, is the third part of our lesson as we remind each other, right, on what is human reproduction and what is its purpose. Okay, right. The main purpose of reproduction is to maintain the number of species and to prevent extinction, right? Extinction, that's when the species cease to exist, okay? When we no longer have the species, it means that the species is now extinct, okay? So the process of reproduction prevents this from happening. We want the species to continue, right? So that's why production is very, very important and has to take place, okay? The male reproductive system is the one responsible for producing sperm cells, right? Producing what? Sperm cells, while the female reproductive system is the one responsible for producing egg cells, right? So when we talk about the sex gametes, we're talking about the sperm cells and the egg cells. Sperm cells are produced by the males, while egg cells produced by the what? The females. Okay, so these are the major sex cells that are supposed to be functional, right, during the time of reproduction. Okay, so that's what we need to record all that. Then when an egg cell and the sperm cell fuse, when the egg cell now and sperm cell fuse, what happens, right? They become one cell. They become one cell, and this is called fertilization. Okay, it's called fertilization, and that's when a baby is formed. That's when a baby is formed. Okay, and that's how a baby is formed. The sperm cell and the egg cell have to what? Fuse together, right? Then once that happens, a baby is formed. Okay, stages of reproduction. If we come to the subtopic of our lesson, the main part of our lesson, we're going to look at them one by one, right? Find out what happens in each stage, right? We're going to look at them in their order, right? Until the last stage. Okay. The first one, that's ovulation. Okay. This is the release of an egg from the ovary. It's called ovulation, right? And remember that ovulation only takes place in females, because females are the ones who produce ovaries, right? And these ovaries are, right, are the ones which release egg cells. So ovaries are only found in females, okay? And ovaries are the ones which produce and release what? Egg cells, okay? And once this process happens or takes place, it's called ovulation. So that's stage number one. We're going to be looking at stage number two. We're going to look at what's called copulation. Right, this time around, the penis is placed inside the vagina, which means now during sexual intercourse, where the male and the female now have to meet together, right, sexually. And during this period, the male places his penis inside the vagina. Okay, stage number three, that's ejaculation. Right, during sexual intercourse, right, that's when ejaculation happens. Right, in this case, the penis releases sperm into the vagina. Okay, stage number four. Right, what happens when now the penis releases sperm into the vagina? The sperm is going to fuse with the egg cell, and when this happens, the process is called what? Fertilization. Hence, what is fertilization? That's the process, right? When the sperm cell fuses with what? Egg cell. So that's stage number four. We look at stage number five, conception. That's when fertilization occurs, right? Once the fusion of egg cell and sperm cell takes place, that is conception. Okay? Then number six, right? What happens? Fertilization is taking place. What then follows? What follows is the implantation of the new fertilized egg, which then sinks into the uterus wall. How then do you define implantation? That's when the fertilized egg cells sink into the uterus wall. Okay? Number seven, maturation. Implantation is taking place, right? What happens? That fertilized egg is to mature, okay? It has to develop. So I have an embryo which is now developing, right? Day in, day out, so that all the characteristics of the baby are initiated, and then the baby has to continue growing until bedtime, okay? So the fertilized egg cell sinks into the uterus wall, and then growing and developing begins. That's maturation. Okay? Then the last stage, that's pregnancy, right? Of which for the humans, gestation period is 40 weeks. Okay? So the pregnancy lasts up to 40 weeks. Okay? Which means that embryo is going to continue growing for 40 weeks. Then after 40 weeks, birth time comes. Okay? Let's look at these stages one by one in detail. First one being ovulation. Okay? Ovulation. What is ovulation? Okay? Once a month. Once a month, one of the ovaries releases a ripe egg during ovulation. Okay? So ovulation takes place once in every month. Okay? Once in every month. Okay? What happens? If you check the diagram that we have there, we realize that the female reproductive system has got two ovaries, right? One on each side, which means one on the left, one on the right. Okay? So now, once in every month, one of the ovaries releases a ripe egg, which happens during a process called ovulation. Okay? So if I take a look there, we're having a right ovary, right? The right ovary there is releasing, it's just released an egg cell. That's an egg cell there, which is shown in yellow. That's an egg cell. It's just been released by the ovary. Okay? So this happens, right? In every month, right? Once of the. Okay? So now we can see that the egg cell has been just released by the ovary. And that process on its own is the one referred to as ovulation. Okay. Now, the released egg enters the oviduct. It has been released. You know, you follow those black arrows, it shows that that released egg cell is going to be entered into the what? Oviduct. Those tubes are called oviducts. And they are also referred to as the what? Fallopian tubes. Fallopian what? Tubes. Okay? They are also found in the other side, right? We've got the other one, which is attached to the left ovary, and the other one attached to the right ovary. So those are called oviducts, right? Or fallopian tubes. Okay? So once that egg cell is released, it moves through the oviduct. Okay? That's ovulation. Now, the movement of the egg along the oviduct. Okay? In preparation for a fertilized egg, the uterus develops a thick layer of blood. This is our uterus. That's the uterus, right? That one is the thick layer of blood we're talking about, which is given in red there. That's a thick layer of blood. Okay? So why does that uterus, okay, start to produce the thick layer of blood? It is preparing, right, for a fertilized egg, which is the egg cells there, so waiting there, so that once there's fertilization, once fertilization takes place, what happens? The egg cell there is going to be what? Then taken to the uterus, so that growth can also be what? Initiated. But in that case, the uterus has to first of all prepare itself so that it's going to be able to accommodate the what? The developing baby in a proper way. So that thick layer of blood starts to develop, right? The egg slowly moves into the uterus by special hairs which are called cilia, right? If the egg fuses with a sperm while in the oviduct, fertilization occurs. Fertilization occurs. Okay? Right. Now look at copulation and ejaculation. Copulation and ejaculation. Right. During copulation, the penis becomes erect. Right. So during copulation, the penis becomes what? Erect. Becomes erect. Right. You can take a look there. We've got two diagrams. We have got the male reproductive what? System. And the what? Female reproductive what? system. Right, there you are. Now, what about copulation? What happens in copulation? It says the penis becomes what? Erect. There is the penis, right? There is the penis. There is the penis from the male reproductive what? System. Okay? Remember, the penis is the male reproductive what? Organ, right? Okay? So this is one which becomes what? Erect. What happens when it's now erect? Okay? The male then places the erect penis inside the vagina. Where is the vagina? We now go to the female reproductive system, right? Because all the females have the vagina, right? So it is placed there. That's where the penis is placed, okay? Inside the vagina, okay? What happens? Sperms from the testes are pumped through the sperm ducts and mixed with fluids. And then semen is now ejaculated, right, onto the what? Vagina, okay? So now the erect penis is placed inside the what? The vagina. That process is called what? Copulation, okay? Then now, during copulation, the male is going to release, right, semen through his penis, right? And that semen is passed to the vagina, and that is called ejaculation. It's called ejaculation. It's called ejaculation, okay? Because sperms are now ejaculated, all right? Activity number 1, okay? We've got 3 questions for that. It says, state 5 stages of reproduction. State 5 stages of reproduction. That's number 1. Number 2, define ovulation. Define ovulation. Okay, number 3, explain what is meant by copulation. So for 3 questions for that, okay, then we're going to be looking at what? At the corrections once we are done, right? 4 minutes for this activity, then we look at corrections. Let's get started. Right, welcome back. Let's look at the answers to our activity number 1. Okay, we've got 3 questions for that activity. Number 1 says state 5 stages of reproduction. Number 2, define ovulation. Then number 3, explain what is meant by copulation. Let's look at these 5 stages of reproduction. We've got ovulation, copulation, fertilization, implantation, and pregnancy. Right, those are the 5 stages of reproduction: ovulation, copulation, fertilization, implantation, and pregnancy. Right, then number 2, they're supposed to define what ovulation is. Okay, we'll talk about a process, right? In this case, where the egg cells are released from ovaries. So ovulation is the release of egg cells from ovaries. The release of egg cells from what? Ovaries. Then now, number 3, supposed to explain what is meant by copulation. What is meant by copulation? Okay? When the penis is placed inside the vagina during sexual intercourse, that's what's meant by copulation, right? When the penis is placed inside the vagina during sexual intercourse, right? That's copulation. So these are answers to activity number 1, right? For those who managed to do everything correctly, keep it up, right? And for those who not do write down corrections. It's very, very important. And remember to be sending all your work, okay? Questions in other comments to our WhatsApp number 079-578-2908. So be interacting with us through the WhatsApp line. Okay, let's move on as we look at fertilization. Okay, fertilization is the next stage of reproduction. Fertilization is the fusion of an egg cell and a sperm cell. So the fusion of an egg cell and a sperm cell is what? Is fertilization. Okay? The fusion of an egg cell and a sperm cell. Right. Fertilization takes place in the oviduct, right? And these are also referred to as the fallopian tubes. That's where fertilization takes place. Okay? In the oviduct. Right. What happens during fertilization? We are having a situation here whereby the sperm cells, these are the sperm cells. Where are these sperm cells coming from, right? They've been released, right? By the what? By the penis. By the penis, right? During copulation, what happens? The males are going to pass out what? The sperm cells, right? And this is happening. It's already happening inside the vagina, right? Where the penis is already inside the vagina, right? During copulation time, what happens now? The penis now is going to what? Ejaculate, which means it's going to release, right? The sperm cells, right? Once the sperm cells are released, right? They come out in numbers, okay? They swim. That's why you've got, you see them having the tails, right? They move by swimming, right? They are swimming through the fluid which is called the semen, right? So they are fluid. They are swimming through that fluid, okay? As they swim through that fluid, what happens? They are racing against each other, right? So that the one which receives the egg cell first is going to what? To be the one involved in what? Fertilization. Okay? So as you can see there, they are having a race, they are competing against each other, no sperms. There'll be millions of them, right? A million of them. Okay? So once they're released by the penis during ejaculation, what happens? Certain race against each other, and the one which reaches the egg cell first is the one who's going to be allowed to enter there. Right? What happens is it enters the sperm cell, it has got what? A head and a tail, right? And the head is what is having what? The nucleus, which contains the DNA, which is the one involved in what? Fertilization of the what? Of the egg cell, right? So now The head with the nucleus is going to be allowed to go through the exa, right? Then the tail remains outside, right? Then what happens next? Okay, that nucleus of the what? Of the head is going to fuse with the nucleus of the exa. Then what happens there? That fusion is the one referred to as what? Fertilization. Okay? Right. Thickening of the uterus. Uterus develops a thick lining in preparation for the fertilized egg. Soon after fertilization, what we have now got fertilized egg. Okay? So now the female's body starts to prepare itself, right? For pregnancy, right? Because all this was happening, right? Within the what? The vagina, right? Where copulation took place, right? And then during copulation, what happens? The sperm cells from the what? The penis were released, right? To inside the what? The vagina, right? And then what happens then? The sperm cells now infused with what? The egg cells. What has happened now? Fertilization is taking place. Okay? So now what we have, we've got what? A fertilized egg, right? Remember, fertilized egg now has to develop, right? Into, it's going to develop into fetus. It's going to develop, right? Into all the what? Baby organs until the baby is fully developed, until the baby is now what? Is born. Okay? So all this has to be prepared for. So the uterus has to prepare itself for all this process. Okay? So once the fertilized egg, okay, is now present, what happens? If the uterus starts to what? To prepare itself, right? What does it do? Right? It develops a thick lining, right? This is usually a thick lining of blood, right? The thick lining is a good blood supply. It's a good blood what? Supply. What's that the blood supply for? To provide food, okay, for the fertilized egg, okay? Remember that the fertilized egg now is already a living what? Organism. It needs food, it needs shelter, it needs protection, and all those have to be what? Provided by the what? Uterus. So the uterus has to prepare itself completely, so that once this fertilized egg settles inside the uterus, it's going to have all the protection it needs for it to continue growing and developing until it is what? Born. Okay? Right, so this is the diagram of the what? Of the uterus that we have there. That's the uterus that you see there. Okay? Right. Those are the fallopian tubes, which you also refer to them as what? Oviducts. And these are the ovaries. The ovaries, let's just go through this in detail. Ovaries are going to release what? Egg cells. Egg cells are going to move into the fallopian tubes, right? Fallopian tubes are also referred to as oviducts, and that's when fertilization takes place, right? During copulation, the penis is placed inside the vagina, and then sperms are ejaculated, that is released inside the vagina. And then the sperms have to what now? Go and fuse with what? Eggs. When this happens, fertilization takes place, right? The fertilized egg now needs to start growing inside the uterus. But before that, uterus has to prepare itself for this process. Okay. Now, what happens when the uterus is fully prepared itself for the fertilized egg? We come to the process of now what is called implantation. Okay. The fertilized egg, which is now known as the embryo, right, starts dividing, okay, doing cell division, okay, and growing, okay. Then what happens after? The embryo travels down the fallopian tubes and eventually reaches the uterus, okay, and eventually reaches the what? The uterus. What then happens? The embryo then burrows into the uterine what? Lining, making itself a home. Okay? Right, just to be very comfortable. Okay? Just be comfortable. Right. This process is called implantation. Right. Let's look at the diagram and we follow these steps one by one as we look at what is happening. Right. The first part, they were in the fertilized egg. We put the fertilized egg. Right. Remember, this is just taking place soon after fertilization. What is fertilization? The fusion of sperm cell and the egg cell. Right? That's fertilization. Soon after fertilization, what we have, we've got a fertilized egg, right? And this is now starting to what? To grow and develop. Okay? We have what is called an embryo, right? What does it do? This embryo will travel down the fallopian tube, okay? And eventually reaches what? The uterus. Now it's there. That's uterus. This is the embryo inside the what? The uterus. Okay? That's the embryo inside the what? The uterus. What then happens? The embryo then burrows into the uterine lining. There it is. What you have there is the uterine what? Lining. Uterine lining. So the embryo is going to what? Burrow into the uterine lining. Okay? Get attached to there. Okay? So that it's held. Okay? In a safe place, which is protected by the what? The uterus. It can now grow freely, right? With all the protection and all the blood supply and oxygen supply it needs. Okay? There is our diagram. What do you have in the diagram? You've got the placenta, which provides the food to the what? To the growing embryo. Okay? Then this one is the uterus, which is the one accommodating the uterus, the what? The embryo until what? Birth. Okay? So now the embryo is going to start growing fully into inside the what? Inside the uterus. Okay? So the uterus there is serving as a wall to the what? To the embryo. Okay? The uterus should have enough, right? Blood supply, which is made possible by the what? The placenta. And food there is passed through what's called the umbilical what? Umbilical cord, which is attached to the uterine lining and the embryo. So food is passed through the umbilical cord. They've got other parts, which include the amnion, amniotic fluid, and the yolk cell. Okay? Right. So the whole of this process, when the embryo burrows into the uterine lining, is called implantation. It's called implantation. Right. Which means in the fallopian tubes, what happens? Fertilization takes place. Remember, fallopian tubes are also referred to as the oviducts. Okay? What then happens in the uterus? Implantation takes place. That's when now the embryo is finally attached and allowed to grow in until the birth time. Okay? Right. Now we move to activity number 2. We put on to questions for that. Number 1 says, explain what happens during fertilization. Number 2, where does fertilization take place? We put on 2 questions for that, and I'm only going to give you 3 minutes. Then I hope that this time around, all of us are going to do well in this activity, because we've just covered everything that you need to use in order to answer these questions correctly. So 3 minutes, let's get started. Right, welcome back. As we look at the activity number 2, right, we're given only two questions there. The first one says, explain what happens during fertilization. The next one, where does fertilization take place? Right, number 1, explain what happens during fertilization. There we are, the sperm cell and the egg cell fuse. So that fusion on its own of the sperm cell and the egg cell is the one referred to as fertilization. Okay? Number 2, where does fertilization take place? Where does fertilization take place? Right? Fertilization takes place in the fallopian tubes. Okay? So inside the oviducts, that's when we've got fertilization taking place. Okay? This happens inside the oviducts, which are also referred to as the fallopian tubes. So that's our activity. Let's write those corrections down for those who managed to answer everything correctly. Keep it up, keep it up. Right, let's move on to pregnancy part of the stages of reproduction. Once successfully implanted, the embryo starts releasing hormones that prepare the body for pregnancy. Okay? At the same time, an organ called the placenta is made. This gives the growing fetus food, and then pregnancy is 40 weeks long. Okay, so the time period for the pregnancy is 40 weeks. It's 40 weeks. Right. Let's look at what happens as we go through the diagram. Right, with what we're having on our statements. Okay, what we have in the diagram, we've got the fetus. There's the growing fetus, right? We've got the placenta. We've got the umbilical cord, which is that umbilical cord. What's happened in this case? Okay, it says once successfully implanted, the embryo starts releasing hormones, right? That prepare the body for pregnancy. So the body has to be fully prepared for pregnancy so that the developing baby growing healthy, have enough supply of oxygen, have enough supply of blood, have enough supply of food, because it's a baby which has to develop into a fully grown human being. Okay? Now, at the same time, what we have in this case, we've got what's called a placenta. There's the placenta, there's the placenta. Right, you can check now. With the placenta, we've got a cord which is attached to the placenta and to the fetus. This cord is called the umbilical cord, right? Okay, this is the cord through which food is supplied, right? From the placenta to the fetus, right? So the fetus is going to be getting its food. It's going to be getting what? Its blood through this cord, which is called what? The umbilical cord, which is attached to the placenta. Okay? Now, we're in pregnancy time, okay? And this is going to take a period of 40 weeks, which means the gestation period for human beings is 40 weeks. Okay? It's 40 weeks, right? Now, we come to childbirth, right? After a gestation period of 40 weeks, right? What happens? The pregnant mother gives birth to a bouncing offspring. That's a new baby. That's a new baby. That's a new baby. Okay? Remember that this baby has been developing inside what? Inside the uterus for the whole 40 weeks. Now it's time for the baby to come out. Okay? That is for it to be born. Okay? For it to be born. Right. Then we've got a new baby born. Okay? Remember that the baby is allowed to pass out through the what? The vagina. Okay? It says as a what? As a birth canal. Okay? As a birth canal. Right. Then, with that being said, we come to activity number 3. Given also 3 questions, it says, state the human gestation period. State the human gestation period. 2. Which female reproductive organ is a birth canal? Okay. Number 3. Which organ develops in uterus during pregnancy to provide food to the grown fetus? Let's go 3 minutes for this activity. After we get corrections, let's get busy. Right, welcome back. Let's look at the activity number 3. Right, number 1, state the human gestation period, and that's a period of 4 weeks. Okay, number 2, which female reproductive organ is a birth canal? This one is the vagina. Number 3, which organ develops in the uterus during pregnancy to provide food to the growing fetus? This is the placenta. Okay, that's tip number 3. Remember to write corrections. Okay, to write corrections. Let's summarize our lesson. Sexual reproduction involves various stages. Okay, fertilization is the fusion of the sperm cell and the egg cell. Fertilized egg cell sinks into the wall of the uterus during the process of implantation. The fertilized egg cell grows and matures. It becomes a zygote. Okay, right. Stages of reproduction include ovulation, which is the release of an egg cell from the ovary, right? Copulation, when the penis is placed inside the vagina. Okay? Ejaculation, when the penis releases sperms into the vagina. Fertilization, when sperm cell fuses with what? Egg cells. Okay? Conception, when fertilization occurs. Implantation, fertilized egg cell sinks into the uterus wall. Okay? That's our homework. Got 4 questions. Complete homework. State the function of the circulatory system, which organ pumps blood throughout the body, name any two blood vessels and what is the function of red blood cells. Okay? Remember to send your work through our WhatsApp number 079 578 2908. On this lesson, we're going to be looking at the circulatory system. So that's our next lesson. Let's go research on this lesson, find out more about this topic. When we come back for our next lesson, be prepared as we look at the circulatory system, showing the diagram with some veins, arteries, and heart, which means those are some of the major components of our next lesson. Right. And also remember to keep in touch to us through our WhatsApp. Okay? For today, it's enough. Thank you so much. Let us meet next time.